Hi, I am Chad Anderson of Filmmaker U, filling in for Gordon Burkell. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify their skill set. You can learn more on filmmakeru.com or follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week we interview a film professional, and this week we are pleased to be joined by cinematographer Si Bell, whose work includes episodes of Peaky Blinders, A Very British Scandal, and most recently The Woman in the Wall that I'm really excited to talk about today. Thank you so much for being on the show, Si. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Really good to be here.
Good. So to get started, I like to know where people got started from. There's so many different avenues for people to get involved in film and video production. You went into the world of cinematography. What led you to that direction of all the directions you could have gone?
I think I went to film school, did a kind of university course in the UK, kind of film production, and basically I thought I wanted to be a director. Made a few shorts, really enjoyed that, but kind of really loved the camera side. So basically, when I graduated, I became a camera trainee, basically on drama, commercials, and kind of smaller scale stuff. And luckily, I fell in with some really brilliant cinematographers on TV drama in the UK, and kind of went from there, worked up the ranks, clapper loader on film, but it was still on film back when I was doing that. And yeah, I kind of fell in love with the cinematography, learned from some great people, started shooting my own shorts, and kind of went from there, really.
I think what attracted me to color correction was the fact that we were like the next stage of cinematography. And the creative side was huge, trying to understand what was wrong with an image, how to balance it, trying to understand how to let the tools do what you want them to do. Where else can the technology go? What else can we do? I'm very interested in trying to mold the image and create the best look possible. And whatever tools are out there, you want to try and latch onto them. I'm Eric Whipp, and this is my course on color correction.
I was always afraid. I always thought about going into being a director, but it always seemed like the biggest job in the process. You have to be in charge of everything. So yeah, it was always for me. It was being an editor and saying, "Hey, I want to just focus on this, so I can, kind of isolate and be there." Was there a point at which you decided that you said, "Hey, you went from being a loader or being a camera assist to saying, "Hey, I think I'm ready to do this." Was there a certain film or a certain show that you were like, "This is I'm stepping up for this"?
I think it was a kind of slow burner, but I think because I directed and, kind of made my own shorts, I just kept doing that while I was a trainee, while I was a loader. So I was always kind of shooting smaller little projects, and I was kind of, gradually progressing, doing pretty big shows and films as a loader or assistant. So it kind of felt like, there was a point where I was like, look, I need to stop doing this assistant work because I need to just keep shooting my own stuff. And it was kind of, I think it was when it was a kind of trajectory, well, a split kind of where I'd either take, a job that would last us 6 months as a loader and not shoot anything because it was, an intense job away. And it was, and I just basically made the commitment to go, right, I'm going to take this really, little short film because I've got some money to get a, red one at the time and, a few lights. And I was like, I'm doing that. And that was a kind of big, I remember it was a big, I think what was it? There was 2 films I had as a loader offered, and they were both really big, kind of really cool teams. And I was like, and I had this little short that I wanted to shoot, and I basically took the short. And I remember that after I'd done that and I turned down such big kind of chunks of work, I thought, right, I've got to commit to this and just do it, and see where it goes. So
Yeah, that's really like the point that you decide, I'm going to take the dare, I'm going to dare myself to say, "Hey, I'm going to push this to the side and really step up and now, change my official title to,
exactly. And I think
I'm
also, there was a kind of, there was a few things that I was up for, and they were kind of looking at my IMDb going, but you're an assistant. And I was like, no, I'm a cinematographer, and it's kind of like, well, if you are one, stop being an assistant, because people are starting to look at your CV and going, none of you still doing this. And, it's a frustrating time because you're going, well, I'm shooting my own stuff, but you need to be who you're saying that you are, as in people need to believe that you are a cinematographer, and you need to believe it in yourself and just go, I'm doing it. And that's all I'm doing. And that's who I am, so yeah, that was the point really.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to talk about The Woman on the Wall. This show has been affecting my sleep at night because it's very intense and very has my mind racing a lot. You shoot this in basically the cinema verite style, from what I'm seeing. It's a lot of moving camera. There's a kind of a little bit of a chaotic motion to the camera. How did you approach this, and how did you work with the director on this to say, this is the freedom I want to kind of have this camera deciding where it's going to go and just kind of follow the action as it goes?
I think so Harry, the director, she'd worked with Ruth Wilson, who's the lead actress in this, and they shot a film together, and they had a kind of shorthand where it was really, kind of performance led and very free flowing kind of style. And so I think Harry was always talking about, bringing that into this. And I think that's kind of where the idea started from, I suppose. And also I think Harry, she's a very instinctive filmmaker. She doesn't like to plan or, it's very much like what Ruth does dictates, and what the emotion is, that's what we're going to do, so, and it was very subjectively kind of, we wanted to be with Ruth and follow her around and see things from her, Lona's point of view. So I think it all kind of came from the kind of subjective nature of how we wanted to film through her eyes, really, and kind of follow with her. And she's quite a instinctive kind of, very much, she feels it, and you never know kind of what she's going to do. So it came from just trying to capture that, really. And I knew with Harry, it was never, she really doesn't like kind of, that kind of precise, pre-planned kind of filmmaking, like, where we're going to be here, we're going to be there, so it was really, I knew that it wasn't going to be that. So that's where it came from. And I just kind of tried to respond to how she liked to work and give her the freedom of, so she could kind of work in the best way with Ruth. And yeah, it was tricky because sometimes, we'd go into locations and then it would turn out that we wanted to do a shot, from the door, like coming right through, this real location into the back room, which was like pitch black compared to the, these bright windows at the start. So it was like we had to light it in a way, it was very tricky, the lighting, actually, to try to be able to light, having the camera super close to someone's face and be able to follow back, not have shadows, not have, you know what I mean, and be able to and to shoot it on a TV schedule. I think that was the challenge, but I think it was kind of, it felt like we needed to do that, and I think it gave it something, I think it felt right for the style of the show, and I think it just that's what it needed. So that's kind of where we went with it, I think.
Do you have fun with that? Is that pressure? Or is that kind of like an adrenaline rush?
I think it's an adrenaline rush, and I think the first time, the thing is, we started the shoot with the Coleman police kind of procedural kind of stuff. So it was a weird, like, that was much more kind of classical, static, kind of, more smoother camera movement, or just, very kind of classical. So we started with that, and then we didn't have Ruth until maybe I think it was the second week. So, and I was a bit like, Ruth's kind of story was going to dictate the style of the show, and we're not doing that first. So it was like really, that was really tricky. But I kind of thought, well, I kind of know what we're going to do with Ruth, but until we kind of do it, we're never going to know exactly, do you know what I mean, what it is and how it, you kind of set in the language of a show. Obviously you've got a lot of ideas, but you want to respond from, with the actors and kind of feel it a little bit. So yeah, we didn't get Ruth until the second week. And then I remember that first day with Ruth where there's so much energy in it, and the way she performs it, it's like it was kind of amazing and exciting, and kind of going, oh my God, this is what we're going to do. This feels right. Let's do this. But then it was like, okay, what feels right is actually really, really technically hard to kind of achieve. And it was and obviously we wanted to feel like a really high end cinematic quality. It wasn't just like, okay, we're going to be handheld and follow her through, and it's kind of doesn't matter if it doesn't look great. You know, we wanted it to be, you know, the lighting was very, very important in the look. So even though it has that kind of handheld verite look, everything's lit, everything's kind of, you know what I mean, has a style to it, and that. So that was just the challenge of it, and it was a great challenge. And luckily, I had an amazing gaffer, Seamus Lynch, who just basically he could really, because I was operating as well, so I was kind of, you know, handheld with Ruth and trying to figure out the lighting, and
Sure.
I had him, who was, you know, he was brilliant, and he really kind of supported us, and he kind of knew what I was trying to do, and everyone kind of got into it, and I think, you know, made it happen. So it was kind of cool, yeah.
You talked about the fact that Ruth came in the second week, and up until then, you were kind of going with a little bit smoother, a little bit more steadier kind of police drama, as it were. I think what was really interesting in watching this was there is a kind of a dichotomy between the police investigation scenes and I think the Ruth's or Lorna's mental breakdowns. She goes into these moments where she has these mental breakdowns, and it goes really tight focus, really close up, kind of extreme close up at sometimes, sometimes a Dutch angle, very shallow focus. Everything else is blurry. It's a whole different, like, it feels like two different mentalities. It's like, hey, these are responsible, you know, cops with some drama, police doing investigations, and then Lorna is going through, you know, especially in the sleepwalking scenes, or the in the interior house scene where she's kind of going crazy. Talk to me about that process, about that, you know, it's some really shallow focus, a little bit blurry, a little bit Dutch. It's extremely close up. Is that more of what you were talking about before?
I think that was like, it was kind of funny. It was, yeah, it was basically, I mean, we kind of, that was really just, we kind of, once Ruth kind of started performing it, and you know, I think that just felt like that kind of happened, you know. It was, you know, it was almost like we just wanted to be in a kind of thoughts, and in a, you know, right in a, because this is when she's having the flashbacks. She's kind of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, she's kind of, you know, she's thinking about her past. Everything's kind of coming back to her, and that, obviously, that was why I was really like, okay, I kind of wanted to do that first, to kind of see how, you know, because the police stuff, we always knew was going to be different, but we kind of wanted it to work together as one style. But I think, to be honest, I think it does work. It's just, it's a, and they also, them two storylines kind of merge as the kind of show goes on. But yeah, it was really that kind of style. It came from Ruth's emotion and Harry, and we kind of just felt that was right, and it was just me kind of shooting it and kind of feeling that's where I wanted to be. And I think at first Ruth was like, Jesus, do you have to be that close, you know, because it was the camera here. But I think it just felt instinctively right, and that was kind of, yeah, but it came from that, really. I don't know what else to say, but it felt, yeah, it was very different to the procedural kind of stuff. And yeah, I think we always kind of planned that, and we knew it was going to be a different world. And yeah, that was,
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully
Yeah,
it
it
worked.
does work. It works really well. It works really well as an idea. I mean, it's a big, you know, you got to figure out in post-production whether these two will work together, being so different. But it is kind of like you said, two worlds. It
Yeah.
works really interestingly. I wanted to ask you about, you talked about lighting and the work of your gaffer. There's two questions I want to ask you about. The first is about the Red Room. I think the Red Room is an interesting idea. The back room that she goes into, that's just in this you know, weird red hue of light. Where did that idea come from?
Well, in the script originally, it was called the Red Room, and there was this room, obviously, where, you know, she kept locked, and it was all of her kind of memories of a child, and, you know, the investigation that she was looking for her own, you know, child. So it was kind of, she kept it under lock and key, and it was just called the Red Room. And I think originally it was like the door was red, and it was kind of a windowless room, basically. And so we were kind of thinking, well, it would be quite cool if we'd had, you know, a couple of stained glass windows, and Tom kind of put the idea that we make them these kind of red stained glass windows, so it's lit by daylight, but because of the stained glass, we have that kind of red hue, and that it kind of came from the script. I mean, we kind of had to figure out exactly where it was. That whole house was a set build, so we could design it in the way that we wanted to. That was why we kind of lined up where the woman in the wall was going to be, and there was the walk kind of through that space into another room, and that it was kind of all designed. But I think the kind of stained glass motivated the light, really, because otherwise we were kind of thinking, well, is the light going to be red? Or, I think we just wanted it to be a strong image. So I think the stained glass just give us that motivation to kind of ground it a little bit in some reality, and but still give it that stylized, look.
Was that a challenge to do, to make sure that you had the amount of red hue coming in from the stained glass, to maintain that you have some, good contrast there to really make out what's happening?
I think it was, there was never too much of a worry. I mean, there was originally, I think there was a few kind of panes of the glass that were kind of clear, and then I think I just made it all red and just kind of went with it, and pushed it. Luckily we had the Alexa 35, so the red, it kind of handles the reds a little bit better than some other cameras. But I think we kind of just went with it and pushed it, and we always wanted the image to have a little bit of texture, and even if it was a slightly maybe not as great resolution, I don't think we were too worried about that. So it wasn't really a kind of big concern. I mean, we did do tests, obviously, and with the stained glass windows, and we tested all of that stuff beforehand, just like we tested the certain wallpapers and different kind of aspects of the set. So luckily we had such a brilliant designer that we kind of all worked together on how the kind of the set was going to be designed, and the light and motivation, and that was all brilliant. So yeah.
So to get a little bit technical, kind of a film nerdy kind of question, you mentioned that you're working with the Alexa 35. What kind of lenses are you working with, and what do you appreciate about those lenses?
So we had the Zeiss Super Speeds, which are obviously quite an old kind of. I mean, some people would say that they're not the most exciting lens, but I mean, they're fast. They're
Sure.
they're 1.3. They've got a great close focus. They've got quite a nice texture, and I like the look of them, actually. But also they're small, and basically the practicalities were the reason that we chose them. One, that the close focus, because we knew we would be moving really close into Ruth's face and kind of developing shots from that. And also because we knew we were going to do a lot of handheld, we wanted a small kind of camera package, and the speed as well. We wanted to do, high speed night work, with in the rain, or, and kind of different, and also be able to use zooms as well, because we had a Cook zoom. So I don't know if you've noticed, but there's quite a lot of zoom work, and some of that's at night, and obviously the zoom isn't that fast. So we kind of used that as well as the super speeds, and the Alexa 35 was brilliant because then we could use the zoom, but then for anything else, the super speeds were brilliant if we needed that extra stop. And so that was kind of our package. Also, I think there was a kind of chat about K35s, which were another lens that pretty quick and small and got a good close focus, and we were kind of going to use them, but I think we really wanted to push for the 35, and I think there was a cost implication as well. So I think we were like, actually get the 35. The super speeds are slightly cheaper. We could get the zoom in the package. We could get any cranes and extra bits of kit that we needed, and we went with that, actually.
Probably one of the smartest things I've ever done for my career. It gave me all the tools that I needed to be able to jump into a new career.
Getting myself into a mindset, thinking like an editor, and being around people that I can talk to on that level was really invaluable to me.
A lot of the things that I learned from that class, I still think about.
I loved the classroom. I loved the computer stations. We built a sense of community.
And it also instills a lot of confidence in you to take that and go out into the world.
After I took the class, I felt very prepared to take the next step.
I owe Manhattan Workshop the career that I have right now.
Things have been going great, and I really have the Manhattan Workshop to thank for that.
I mean, the Zeiss is a little bit older, like you said, but they make a good lens. You know, the Carl Zeiss are really nice. You mentioned, it was interesting because there was another question I was going to ask. You mentioned zooms. You said you had a Cook zoom. I noticed that, and I don't know if it was intentional or just, you know, the moment was right. I noticed that with all the shots of Lorna, there's sometimes Lorna at a distance. You do this very, very slow push in, like when we introduce Lorna into a scene, we're starting back here, and there's a slow push in, just a really slow, gentle push in as she's thinking about something or considering something. It starts really wide and goes just a little, just very, and I'm like, it almost felt like I couldn't tell if it was zooming in or not. I kept getting close to the screen, being like, are we zooming in? It's very ominous. It has an ominous feel to it. Was that intentional, or was that just the moment?
Yeah. No, that was intentional. I think, you know, we always kind of, I mean, I kind of really love zooms. Some people don't really, I mean, I've got this Cook kind of vintage zoom and that we had on this, and I used it on Very British Scandal as well, and Peaky. I think we had that on Peaky. And yeah, sometimes they're just such a great little tool to just, you just to kind of slightly develop a shot, or, you know, slightly push in on a certain moment, or, you know, or sometimes use it on the dolly, and, you know, you kind of, there's certain shots that you probably don't really notice are on a zoom, but we kind of use it with a dolly and the blocking, and just to kind of develop a shot into a close-up or whatever that is. But yeah, we used it a lot for like just emotional kind of moments, just like you say, like a little bit of an ominous push, or, you know, there were certain development shots we did, which actually a few of them have been cut out, but I loved them. And that, you know, just basically one kind of scene in like a really long, like a zoom that starts really tight in there, and as they walk up, you know, we're tracking and pulling back, and just different things are happening in the frame. And, you know, it was just, I love that stuff. It's just another great tool, I think, for filmmaking that, you know, you kind of, I think is just, you know, certain blocking situations or scenes, you just kind of go, this would be great just on a zoom, pulling back, and, you know, yeah, if it feels right, do it.
I hear you. It's interesting. You've mentioned that you know, some people don't like zooms, and some people, and so there's this classic idea of using primes and sticking with primes alone. What I noticed was with the zooms you were doing, or with these pushes that you were doing, it felt to me, and I see it a lot more in horror movies. It felt very horror movie-esque, this kind of slow, ominous kind of, you know, something lurking in the shadows kind of thing of a push in. And so I started to think about this show, and I was explaining to family members of mine, being like, it's kind of a thriller, it's kind of a horror. There's moments of it that feel really genuinely scary. Was there a tone that was more thriller, or a tone that was more, you know, I feel like this is scary, like minutely scarier than a thriller. There's moments that I just keep waiting for something to jump out at me.
Yeah, it was, you know what, that was the whole thing at the start. We were kind of figuring out, because, you know, you read the scripts, and the scripts are amazing, and it's such an original piece of writing that Joe's, you know, done. But we were kind of going, man, the tone of this is kind of crazy. Like, we've got this real social kind of, you know, drama about something that's so important and so shocking, and we want to tell that story. But then, you know, you've got this thriller kind of horror element that is actually quite entertaining and scary, but it's kind of sucking the viewer in a way. That's what I think Joe was thinking. You know, he wants to use this kind of thriller to almost kind of get people in, and then you go, actually, this is a real, you know, something quite important that, you know, that you learn and you kind of you find out about. But so yeah, the tone was like really tricky to kind of get that right, and I think, yeah, it's all in there. I mean, it all works, I think, as well, which is like, but I think we were all, you know, really kind of figuring out together how that was all going to play, you know. And I think I remember we did this a kind of tone reel where we had a lot of reference images and kind of cut from different films, and we put it all together and kind of, you know, just in our own heads, just feeling like how things would jar, and this kind of detective genre mixed with like thriller, horror, you know, how that was all going to kind of, you know, mesh together. But, you know, hopefully it does.
Excellent. And I was going to ask you this other question about lighting. One of my most interesting scenes, or my favorite scene so far, is the second episode. They go up to the wailing woman's house, and I'm assuming it's more than flashlight, but there's a lot of flashlight. How did you pull that off?
Well, that was, you know what, that was a real because basically that house, it's in the middle of nowhere, and so we had the exterior we lit with, you know, moonlight, kind of fake moonlight. We had, like, you know, obviously cherry pickers with soft boxes and things like that. And then basically when we were inside there, we knew that Lorna, she was going to have this flashlight, and we wanted to shoot it all handheld through, sort of moving through the corridors, moving up the stairs and all that stuff. So luckily I kind of had got quite pally with Ruth by that point, and I was like, and we also had light through the windows, like moonlight, and but that did not light the set, you know, that it was basically, it was, so I just said to Ruth, I said, look, I'm going to do this scene, and, you know, I want to do it all with just the torchlight, but if we do it with the torchlight, you know, you're going to have to kind of help us bounce it into like different things that are, you know, you're basically lighting the scene. So I basically wore a white kind of sheet wrapped around me, basically, and you know, like a bib kind of thing, you know, with a big and basically I told Ruth to bounce it off me, at times. And, you know, we kind of, she's so good practically, you know, she was just, she made it work. I mean, I had another torch that I kind of could, you know, shine on myself if I needed a bit more fill. So, but we shot the scene with torchlight, basically. Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and then upstairs, I think it all turns red. So we had certain amounts of light up there. Or maybe that's another episode. But there was the majority. No, it turns red upstairs because she goes into a flashback. Yeah. So, but basically that was it was pretty much torchlight with a couple of bits of additional bounce, but mainly Ruth kind of playing ball and doing a bit of her own lighting, which was
that's fantastic. That's challenging to do as an actress and also be a lighting assistant, I guess, in some way.
Yeah, no, she I mean, to be honest, if she'd been, you know, if it had been a different actor, I think I might have had to just, you know, go around and just bounce it myself. But I think it just gives so much more realism to it, and, you know, and yeah, I love that scene, I gotta say. And also we had like haze in there just to kind of lift it a little bit, you know, the shot, but pretty much that was it. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. It's amazing. So lastly, I'm going to ask you this question. I want to know, do you have a guilty pleasure? Something that at the end of the day, you just watch for a good time, to relax, maybe unplug your brain a little bit and just be silly. Maybe something you're embarrassed about or something.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say that I'm a massive Queer Eye fan, you know.
Nice.
Queer Eye is like, it's so emotional and it gets us every time. And just finished the new season, and it's great. I love the guys.
Yeah, I mean, who knew that show was going to work? Like, that was just a show that was just unique in such a fantastic way. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm
such good characters.
It's amazing.
Jonathan's amazing.
Good deal. All right. Thank you so much again, Si. Thank you for talking to us for this moment. We appreciate it. That's going to be it for this week. You can check us out at filmmakeru.com or follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. I am Chad Anderson. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you again, Si.